with experts and analysts on the most pressing issues affecting our nation. My name is SHARON MANDOR. Today, we're diving into a critical subject, the management of ecological funds in Nigeria. Despite billions of naira disbursed over the years, natural disasters like flooding, erosion, desertification continue to plague many states, raising serious questions about how effectively these funds are utilized. Now, joining us is a renowned public affairs expert. He's also an organization development consultant he will be shedding light on the issues surrounding ecological fund allocation, the transparency, consent, and what reforms are necessary to ensure these funds truly serve its purpose. Together, so we'll explore the political, environmental, and governance challenges affecting the efficient use of these critical resources. I'm being joined in the studio by Marvel Joseph. Good morning to you, Marvel.
Good morning, Sharon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning. All right, so let's go into the problem as it is, these ecological funds. Despite the disbursement of over 39.62 billion naira in ecological funds, flooding continues to devastate many states. I mean, we're here, we're still talking about Borno State and then Zamfara State. Now we're hearing that Lagdo Dam has started, and they've also alerted 11 states that, hey, see, you all might just be experiencing floods. And Cross River State is just among the 11 states, just very close to us here. In your opinion, what is responsible for the apparent ineffectiveness of these funds?
Yeah, Sharon, if you ask me what is responsible for this, I would put it in three dimensions: our own peculiar environment, our own cultural values, and the aspect of government ways of doing things, which has contributed enormously to all the multivarious problems that we are having in the country, whether it has to do with our economy, whether it has to do with managing our institutions, all aspects of our operations in Nigeria has to do with our values, what we really term as important to our lives. Now, for us to understand this ecological fund issue, we need to look at it from the inception. You know, how did it even come about? How did we arrive at this situation? How did we arrive at the ecological funds in the first place? This was something that came into being since 1981. So, like the reference you just made about the 39 billion, that's just about 1 year release of the federal government. That's from June to June 2023 to June 2024. I know that must have inspired this question from you, that what are we really doing with it? Coupled with the fact that we are having a lot of environmental challenges in Nigeria. You refer to Borno because it is in the news, but if you look at here in Akwa Ibom State, you know we are having a lot of ecological challenges in Akwa Ibom State as well. You know, I think a few years ago, the road, the Itam area, that's the Kalabaitu road, collapsed. Just Uyo Village Road is also in a disaster. Now, when you look at it, you see the natural disaster impact, and you also want to see how people are also contributing to it. For example, the Environmental Protection Agency in Akwa Ibom State. If you have passed Uyo Village Road recently, where they have the dump site, then it's quite an eyesore. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. So without really looking far to Borno, Adamawa, and other places, you see these ecological threats just around us in Akwa Ibom State, and we seem not to take it serious, because a few years ago, the then Secretary to the state government went to your village road and promised in 2 weeks, 2 months, that place will be fixed up. But till today, the place is in such a deplorable condition. I really thought about it again when we had this cholera issue in Nigeria, that an outbreak of cholera is very close to us by the way we are managing our waste system. Then you also look at our attitude in terms of drainage management, the gutters and all that, and our culture of planting trees and so on. How serious are we taking our environment? What are we really doing to protect our environment, which would have helped us to live healthy and live a better life? Our environment provides us with a clean air. Because the nature has already done it for us, that we can have clean water, spring water, clean, without going through any process. Nature has already done it for us, that we could have clean air, we could have food, we could have raw materials for our medicines and industry and buildings. What we do with all sorts of raw materials that we could generate from what nature has already provided. If you also observe in recent times, I don't know if you would be, because when I want to cast my mind back a little, I just look at Sharon, I'm wondering whether she knows what used to happen in Nigeria in the 80s, in the 70s.
I'm sure if you say it, I might know.
You know, once you see vultures around, you would know that there's a celebration about to happen. Maybe somebody's killing cows, somebody's killing goats, even chicken, vulture will come around. But these days, you no more see vultures around. And these are what nature provided for us to clean up our environment, to help us tidy up our environment. What are we doing to really retain, to sustain the kind of environment that God handed over to us to manage? Those were the issues that government would have thought about it to say, we are going to set aside some funds for us to be able to take care of these things. Where are these ecological funds coming from? It comes from the Federal Accounts and Allocation Committee. That is, it comes from the statutory monies that comes into government hands. Then some percentage is being taken out for this ecological fund. It started with 1%. It was increased to 2%. Then in recent years, it has become 3% from this Federal Accounts and Allocation Committee, what is being shared to the federal government, to the state government, and to the local government, as was recommended by the Okigbo Commission. Now, government have this money, but when we are talking about sharing formulas, like recently we've heard the government have released money for
relief funds.
Not the relief fund, I mean the statutory
sharing. The FAC allocation.
Yes, the FAC allocation. You would hear the distribution, they will call out the statutory revenues, they will call out the distributable VAT, that is VAT. They will call out the electronic money transfer as income, and what is to be shared, the 13% mineral revenue, that's the derivation revenue. But you hardly would hear people talk about the ecological fund because of the way it is managed in a special way. And when it is managed like that in a special way, it doesn't, if it is in a special way and then it is transparently accounted for, then you will be able to say that this is what the funds are being used for. Now, do we have erosion in Akwa Ibom? Do we have erosion in Nigeria? Yes, we do, especially in the eastern part of Nigeria. We have a lot of erosion effects in Onitsha, Anambra, Ebonyi, all those areas. Down to Akwa Ibom State here, we have the area, Eka Street area and all that. We have a lot of gullies, and these are things that are affecting us so terribly. Desertification in the northern part of Nigeria, this flooding issue is not just in Borno. A year or so ago, we had a severe flood in Bayelsa State.
Well, it was due to the release of the Lagdo Dam, and it's about to be released again. Now,
we already know that these are things that could come up.
Yeah.
So what are we doing as preventive measures? It extends to the oil spills, how we manage our oil spills, like what we normally have in Akwa Ibom State, from time to time. You hear people talk about the oil spill, the drought that we have in Nigeria, and so on. So if these funds were set out, that let us use it and tackle this, and it is shared between the federal, state governments and the local government. I know what goes to the federal government or what goes to the local government is being managed by the state as well, because of the way these funds were being handled. But when we look at it, how does it come to the state? They share it differently, and it comes to the state. So when we hear something like this 39.962 billion that has just been released, was released, it wasn't just released once. It's been by the understanding, by the explanation of the federal government. So you see, it comes to say that states that would have higher need for it, that is based on the needs assessment of these areas, like Kano State received far more than other states. Borno State received far more. Then when you look at other states like Lagos State also received very high, because Lagos State got up to 1.81 billion. When you look at states like Kwara, Bayelsa, Ondo, Edo, Abia, Cross River, and so on, they don't receive as much. So what goes to these states ranges between 40 billion or thereabout in a month. No, not up to 40 billion.
That's for the lowest.
Check. There's the lower part, the lowest, the states that earn the lowest.
Yeah,
40 million, not up to billion. 40 million, like this Kano that received about 2.1 billion over the time. It was actually 175 million they were receiving on a monthly basis.
Okay, but the state by state breakdown of the allocation shows that the first half of 2024, Kano got 1.04 billion naira.
That is in the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee. What comes from the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee?
Okay.
That is what I listed as the statutory revenue, the VAT, and so on.
Okay.
That is distributed separately, but the ecological fund is not there. It is accounted for separately, so it comes into the state. No noise is made about it that states are receiving that volume of money. So it comes in trickles like that, 40 million, 46 billion, million, in millions. Now, for a state that is committed to ensuring that they pick up and handle their ecological needs effectively, an account would have been set aside that they collect this money and use it to address ecological needs in their areas.
Yeah.
But because there is lack of effective there's lack of accountability, there's lack of effective transparency in handling these funds, it becomes very difficult for people to even know how much is going to states every time and what they are doing with that money. I just said something to say that if you look at, you don't need to conduct a deep needs assessment to see that we have ecological challenges in Nigeria enormously. Whether we are talking about the northern part of Nigeria with their desertification challenges and the current flooding issue that we are witnessing in that part of the country, or whether you are talking about what we normally witness here, the floods in Akwa Ibom, the heavy rains, and the effect of flooding in this other part of the country, even up to the oil spill issues that we witness in Akwa Ibom State. So when these funds are made available to the states do not come up to say that this is what they are doing with this money. They don't publicize it, so it makes it appear as if they are not being transparent about it. And when once it happens like that, it makes people lose confidence to say what are they really doing with the money. So perhaps state governments are doing things with the money that are not really related to ecological challenges. Perhaps they use the money for some other things. So if money from ecological funds comes in, then you are not using it for what you are supposed to use it for. It becomes that you have neglected an aspect or what the money was meant for. And
then at the end of the day, when there are disasters, you end up spending more than that.
And you end up spending more than that, yes. So if you were to have a stabilizing fund, maybe set aside fund to say that this is what you want to do. You've identified a need in your environment and say you are going to use this fund to address this need. So when federal government makes this allocation coming, then you would now know that this is what you want to use it for, and address your need as it would have been. So if we identify areas of needs and we are able to say that there are needs in Akwa Ibom State, there are needs in Borno State, or there are needs in Cross River State, and this is how to address it. Since the federal government also receives money from these ecological funds, the federal government knows the area that they are going to address. The state government focuses on the area they want to address. If you are receiving 46 million, you may not go so far in addressing a particular need in your state in a month. So I'm talking about accumulating these funds over time, or receiving money and using this money to pay back, like you get a loan and you are paying back the loan, but you've used it to address a particular high need of ecology, what would have been ecological threat to your own environment. You are able to address it. That it would have gone a long way for us to be able to feel the effects of these ecological funds that normally come down to the states.
Okay, Mavo, I'm hearing from what you have analyzed, I'm hearing two things: misplaced priority and lack of accountability. And I want us to take a look at this lack of accountability. How can we ensure transparency or better governance when it comes to these ecological funds? How can we make sure that there's improved transparency and effective utilization of these funds?
It's an open thing, because if you are able to publish your account on a monthly basis, you are able to say when money comes in. There was a time people were saying, let the state governments, the local governments begin to be publishing their accounts, what they are doing. But beyond that, the planning is very, very important. If you know that so amount is coming into your account, at least you have an idea of what could come into your account, because it is fixed. 3% is being taken out from the federal allocation, from the money that is being shared through the 3 tiers of government. You know it is 3%. You know already from the budget, this is what was projected. If it falls short of the budget, you may not get as much, but you are able to have an idea of what you are going to receive, and you know that you have a need to address. Then you know this need may cost you up to 1 billion naira. So would you be able to generate 1 billion from the money that is coming in through the ecological funds to be able to address that need? You say you may not, so you may be able to get money from elsewhere to back up that. But the important thing is to plan and know that you have a need to address and channel that money to that purpose. But the other part, you also find that government is not also declaring as they are receiving these ecological funds. There was some few years back, we heard people talk about the release of ecological fund when it is near the time of elections, and state governments are looking for money to run elections, and they ask for that money. And politically, states that are not in tandem with maybe the federal government appear to not receive the funds on time until after the election. The funds will be released. So even to the federal government, they seem to know that these funds are not used for the purpose that they are meant for. So what should be done? It's a matter of instituting committees to manage, to monitor, and evaluate what you have done with the money. If you have been given 50 million naira, somebody should then ask, what did you do with the money?
Okay, but Marvel, if we're going to set up a committee, then what's the point of the legislature?
You know, if you look at your situation, you see there's a situation, leadership is about situations. If you find out that the legislature are not responding to some of these things through the oversight responsibilities that they should be carrying out, and they are not doing it the way they should be doing it, then you should also devise a way to see that you are able to manage your governance effectively.
But then another thing is, Marvel, if the legislature are not checking and balancing, and the executives are not using the ecological funds the way they are supposed to be used, then who is going to set up the committee?
The head, everything rests on the head. So if you are managing a state or a local government or federal government, and you want things to be done properly, then the responsibility behoves on you to ensure that you do what you want to. So if you don't, it means you have failed. So in this ecological fund matter, the president would have failed if all the states are not utilizing the funds for what they are supposed to utilize it for. Because the president should set up a system of monitoring and evaluation of what these monies are being used for. So if you have released, now you say you have released 39.62 billion for 1 year. So we should be saying, if you send 2.1 billion to Kano, what did Kano do with 2.1 billion naira? So you demand for the report. The report should come to you, written and with pictures, and you are able to also visit the sites of where these monies were utilized. So it's a very simple thing. So it's all based on honesty. If the federal government is honest about of overseeing the country, and if these kind of monies are being sent to states, they have a responsibility of also auditing what they have sent out to the state.
That point that you have just made is very concrete, because that was one of the questions, that was one of the reasons I was asking this kind of questions. What has happened in Borno State is it's bad, right? I've seen pictures, I've seen videos, I've said it a number of times. It makes me so emotional. But then seeing on the papers that monies were released over the number of years for the repair of that dam, and the proper questions are not being asked, like what was the money used for. Former governors of Borno State, for example, should be called upon to ask, okay, what were this money being used for? Because as a matter of fact, what the report says was nothing was done on the dam, and they kept on giving alerts to Borno State. This is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, but it seemed like it was falling on deaf ears. Now see what has happened.
Sometimes when we analyzing these things, we would like to look at it in terms of the subject matter. Like we are talking about Borno State now. Borno State received 1.68 billion for the past 1 year as ecological funds. What were they using it for? Borno State is also the hardest hit when it comes to these insurgency issues that we have had in our country over the time. So what monies have they received as security money? What monies have they received as ecological money? How are they being able to separate these ecological monies from security money, depending on the kind of need that they have been able to identify within their environment. Now, when we also want to look at these ecological issues, we are talking about things like flooding, for example. If you are going to take care of flooding, how much would it cost you? Sometimes governments put in a lot of money. What they have received is 1.68 billion. Can this really take care of the land mass that they are having in that environment? Borno State is quite big. Now, where is this? What are they utilizing the money for? Is number one, if they are able to say this is what they have done with the money and is commensurate with what the amount of money that they have received, then all well and good. They need more help. They need international help. They need help
you also mentioned that it's 1.6 million every month, right?
1.68 billion.
Yearly or monthly?
Yearly.
Okay, yearly.
So the monthly that Borno received is about 140 million in a month. So to save up 140 million to do anything tangible when it comes to environmental issue is not very realistic.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Okay.
It's not very, very realistic, because when you talk about ecological issues, I was taking flooding for example. You know how much it would cost you to build a channel, a water channel, for example, from maybe you call it Benin to Uyo, a kind of distance. It's enormous, but it's not a matter of one.
But some will argue, Marvel, that the little that comes in, they should be seeing it. Nigerians should be seeing the impact of the little amount, coming into the states.
That is the place of evaluation.
Okay.
That is the place of auditing. That's the place of being able to bring up convincing reports of what one is doing. So if you are having such monies given to you, then you should utilize it effectively, and if you are utilizing effectively and you're also reporting and you're also letting people know what you are doing with that amount, it goes a way to help. It's difficult to say whether they have used this money effectively or they have not used this money effectively, because we have not seen the report on ecological expenses from Borno State, for example. We have not seen the report of what has been spent. For example, in some states, you still have international organizations that have been coming up with their different interventions in these ecological matters. So it's only when you are able to see that so amount was issued and their report says that they have been able to do this and that with that amount, that you will be able to say whether they have utilized it effectively or not. Like I have said, there has been speculation of people utilizing these monies wrongly. They don't even use it for the purpose that it was meant for. But those are only speculations. Those are only things that are being said without proven facts. That is how the monies are being utilized. But if we want to say we should channel our energy towards this ecological matter, we would be doing so because we know the economic benefits derivable from us having a clean environment. If you don't have a clean environment, it would affect our health. If you don't have good health, you cannot be very resourceful. So it is a very important aspect of our lives for us to take care of the environment, the ecological systems in our environment, to ensure that we are getting things right. That's why we've been receiving a lot of assistance from the international organizations. You hear of this WASH program, that is water, sanitation and hygiene programs that so many international organizations are involved in partnership with some state governments and the federal government to ensure that we keep our environment. You hear a lot of people talk about protecting our environment through tree planting and all that. But what are we really doing to ensure that we are keeping this environment clean in terms of the cultural values that we carry, we go with? Like I have talked about the absence of vulture. If you ask me, vultures, people started hunting up vultures. So they have scared away vultures. Vultures are no more in our environment. And that would also impact on our environment in terms of clean living that we should be having if we were to have these natural ways of taking care of our environment. We talk about the way how carbon is dominating our environment and how we should have cleaner energies and so on in our environment. We talk about all these things, but how practical, how we also taking it important. So that's why I said it's not all about the government. It also has to do with the people as well.
All right.
Our understanding of what our environment really requires and how we should maintain our environment.
Marvel, you just spoke about how insufficient the amount of money given to Borno State, for example, is. And recently, 3 billion naira was approved to be given to states to address natural disasters. And some experts have argued about the allocation process lacking fairness and how certain states with severe ecological issues are getting equal amount with other states that do not have as severe cases. So how can we ensure, what reforms would you suggest to ensure that the funds are allocated based on need rather than equal distribution?
When we are talking about allocation of monies to where areas of needs, there are criteria of evaluation, the evaluation criteria based on their needs assessment and so on for these allocations. So if people are coming up to say this social area needs more money, what is your evaluation method? What is your stand? Where are you speaking from to say that social place needs? For example, now I may say that why give Borno State so much more money than Akwa Ibom State if they were to talk about flooding, for example. I will tell you that we in the south are closer to the sea, and our place are more likely to be flooded than Borno. But today we don't have that, but Borno has more floods in their area. These are scientific things that we need to also look at, that before people come up with this criteria of sharing. I could be sentimental to say, give me more money in my own state, that I need more because I'm more familiar with my ecological environment, with my environment, to say I need this, I need that. But the other environments may need more. When you talk about desertification, what do we really put into desertification? I may not be interested because I live in Akwa Ibom State. So if we are coming up with objective analysis to say, what do we really need these things for, then government on its part should do more about strategic communication to be able to justify their actions, to say we are putting in money into so state because of this and that and that. We talk about the dam issue, about the flood, causing the flood in a certain part of Nigeria. Do we have other threats in other parts of Nigeria that could also be very, very dangerous? Then you start talking about prioritizing what should be our priority. How should we set our priority in terms of these allocations? So when we are discussing this, I would want to balance it by saying, if Kano is taking this money, 2.1 billion, and a state like Lagos is taking 1.8 billion, then you come to maybe Kwara or Bayelsa, and they are taking far lower amounts. You would be wondering, in Bayelsa, don't they have even more ecological challenges than what we are having in Lagos, for example? Or is Lagos not even having generating revenue for itself more than Bayelsa, that would have needed more of this money to take care of itself, and so on? So we keep discussing, but if we are able to see the criteria, the eligibility criteria of each of these states, what makes them more eligible to have more money than this other state, we may be able to discuss it, to say so state should have been given more money, but they are now giving to so state. This other state, these are their challenges. This other state, these are their challenges. This is how to solve this, or this is how to solve that. And not issues that we can just pass judgments on government without having a complete information on what is informing their decision to make these allocations to the places that they are making these monies are available to. We know that the beneficiaries of this money on the federal government side includes the National Emergency Management Agency. How effective are they? How many offices do they have in Nigeria? How responsive are they to the needs of Nigerians? The office of the government, the secretary to the government of the federation, how are they coordinating? How are they communicating? I'm talking about strategic communication to Nigerians, to enable Nigerians understand this sharing formula and where they are placing their priorities. About
that, one would say that the disbursement coming from the secretary to the general, the SGF,
yes,
coming from that office it raises an eyebrow, saying that it should be coming from the Ministry of Environment instead.
There are offices, ministries, or there are departments in government that are statutorily under the office of the Secretary of the Federal Government. For instance, NECO, the examination body, is under the OSG's office. Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation is under his office, NECO, for example. So these are things. It's like saying the Vice President has boundaries commission under the office of the Vice President. So it is not about whose office these departments are shared to. It is more about how effective they are in managing these things. If government feels that so department of government should be under so office, they should have their own reason for doing so. And once they put those offices in those ministries or offices or under someone, then the person should be effective enough to see how he can make the people feel the impact of the reason why these things were formed in the first place, to address the needs that we really need to address. The ecological thing you would also look at, it's just an intervention funding. It's a special. We should not take away the fact that monies that are allocated to states, local government should not be used for ecological issues. This is just an intervention, an extra. It's like having the NDDC, that Niger Delta Development Commission. Yeah. So the ecological funds comes in that manner too. So I'm waiting for NDDC to come and do things in